Hi there, welcome back. Today I want to talk to you about lunging. The subject matter of lunging could actually take up an entire video series of its own, but today we're just going to work on just this one lesson for this video series. Most specifically, I'm just anxious to get to the subject matter of cantering. So today, what I'm going to do is show you some basic lunging skills and then give you some pointers and tips on how to get your horse more confident cantering under saddle. So if you're somebody that already knows how to lunge, hang in there with me, see if maybe some of my pointers and tips help you become a better lunger and helps your horse become more confident. If you're new to lunging, I'm going to ask you to please make sure that you have been practicing the groundwork lessons that we've done previously, and make sure that you're good at the challenges, that your horse is feeling more disciplined and easy to move around, and that you're feeling more coordinated in the way that you work your horse. Lunging can be a complicated skill. It takes a lot of coordination. So I just ask that you take your time and do one step at a time. If you're having any problems, please let me know. I have plenty of horses and people here with all different personalities and skill sets, so I can make more videos as a follow-up to this one if we need them. Okay, so if you're ready, give me a thumbs up and let's get started. First of all, I just want to point out the equipment that I'm using. So for today, I've got a Spree in her full tack. So she's got her saddle that I use to ride her in. She's got her bridle that I use to ride her in. In addition to her tack, I am using what's called Vienna reins. And the reason I have the Vienna reins on is because when I send a Spree out onto the circle, she's going to need a little bit of help with her balance. And the Vienna reins also help her to learn about contact from the rein to the bit. Okay, so if you don't have Vienna reins and you have side reins, you can use those as well. So side reins would just not have this piece that's attached to the girth. You see the Vienna reins are attached to the girth. They come up through the rein, and then I like to hook them up on the horse's D-ring for a horse like the Spree, who has a tendency to be a little bit heavy on the forehand, and she actually leans pretty nicely on her own into the contact. So I put the Vienna reins up by the D-rings, where closer to where my hand would be. And you can do the same if you just have side reins that would attach to the D-ring and straight to the bit. If you have a horse, like if maybe you have an Arabian that likes to have a hollow back, their head and their tail up in the air, you can attach the Vienna reins or your side reins to your horse's billet straps. That will encourage the neck down a little bit. Okay, the Vienna reins that I have that I'm using encourages the horse's neck to come down when they're moving forward. That's why I generally like to choose the Vienna rein. All right, so I want to just quickly show you how to safely put your horse out on a circle. You can go back to my very first video that I did where I had a Spree just on a rope halter, and I did a quick little demonstration of sending the horse out onto a lunge circle so that we could study the horse's walk and trot. And the way I did that was I just asked the horse to back up a little bit and then get their hind leg to cross under, so I can send the horse out sideways away from me. And I want to make sure that I get a Spree out far enough that her hind leg is not in kicking range of me, okay? She's not much of a kicker, but you do want to be careful to make sure that if she were to try to kick me, she's not in range close enough to do so. I want you also to notice the way I'm holding the lunge line. So I'm holding the line just like I would hold my rein. It's ribboned through my hand, in through the pinky, out through the thumb. I've said this many times to people taking lessons from me. I told them to hold their rein and they proceed to hold it like this. Try not to hold your lunge line like this. It's easier for the horse to pull the line out of your hand. I like to hold it like this. Keep your fingers closed, just like you were riding and holding onto your reins. So now that I've got a Spree out on the circle, I'm going to make sure that she's got that speed control we've been talking about. If I ask her to go faster, Will she go faster? Good. That helps keep her out there. I also want you to notice how I am positioned. So think about when you're lunging your horse that you want to try to make a triangle shape. You're the point of the triangle. The horse is the long side of the triangle, as well as your whip and your line. So I stay towards the middle of her. My left hand is towards her mouth, and then my right hand and the whip are towards her haunches. So my whip drives her forward into my hand. If a spree tries to turn into me, I can use my left hand towards her eye to send her back out. Or one thing that I like to do is use my whip here under the line, so she gets the idea that she has to stay out of this space that I'm filling up with my whip. Okay, so once we get the horse out there and you've let them walk around and they're nice and calm and relaxed at the end of the line, you can go ahead and ask for trot. But before we do that, I want you to notice that I've put a spree in the corner of the arena. And I did that for a reason, because I'm going to use the sides of the arena to help me keep a spree straight on the outside of her body. At times during this lunge lesson, you're going to notice at the open side of the circle, the spree is going to kind of bulge out and maybe try to bend a little bit too much. When it's time for me to actually ask her for canter, I'm going to use this sides of the arena to keep the outside straight so I can get her into canter, and it encourages, just assures me a little bit more that I'm going to get the correct lead canter. Alright, so for now, I'm going to ask her for trot and just get her going at trot and get a little bit of discipline, make sure she's listening to me. And when I ask her to whoa, that she whoas. When I ask her to go, that we go. Remembering this from our very first lesson. You have to go when I say go, and whoa when I say whoa. Very good. We also want to test out our speed control out on the lunge line. So a spree has a tendency to be a bit lazy, so I'm going to ask her if she could trot a little faster. Here we go. Just getting a spree used to going a little bit faster with all her tack on, so she gets comfortable with a little bit of speed, and then a little slower. And then back to walk. Okay. When it's time and you feel like you are good at safely getting your horse to move off onto a lunge circle, and that your horse is well behaved at the end of the line at the walk and the trot, that she's going and whoaing when you say, and that you can speed her up and slow her down, then you can start thinking about asking her for canter. So the way that I ask her for canter is I like to use the kiss noise so a spree knows to go more forward. You can choose whatever noise you want. Everybody has kind of a different verbal cue for canter. Just make sure you pick one and you're consistent about it, so that when it's time to get on her and you ask her for canter with your outside leg, she's at first not going to know what that means. So you're going to need that verbal cue if you're just bringing a young horse along. So for today, what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask her for trot. Trot, buddy. Again, I'm going to build her confidence with the speed by asking her to trot a little faster. And then because she's trotting a little faster, she's using her hind end better, and she's in better shape, better position to easily pick up that canter. I'm going to ask her to go forward and canter. And then trot. So I'm going to make sure I ask this spree to trot before she breaks to trot. You don't have to do a lot of cantering when they're first learning on the line. just a little, so she gets confident. Trot, trot, trot. Nice big trot. Prepare. When I come close to the arena, canter. And again, using the fencing to help me keep her outside of her body safe, so she gets that left knee canter and trot. This time I kept it going for a whole circle, but made sure I asked her for trot before she thought about breaking. Now I'm just going to let her have a little break and walk, because she was very good about that. So because she was good, we let her have her little rest. So she knows when she comes up with good answers for me, she gets plenty of generous breaks. Alright, so I want to change directions. I'm going to ask the Spree for roll. I invited her in, so it's fine that she came in. Some people get upset that the horse comes in. If your horse tries to take a break on their own without you inviting them, then certainly make that correction and keep them out on the circle until you ask them to come in. I'm going to change direction. I want you to notice, too, the way I put this lunge line on her. Now she has Vienna reins on for the balance. So if I wanted to, I could just hook the lunge line right directly to the bit. What I like to do, though, is to take the lunge line, put it through the bit, over the top of her head, and attach it to the other side, just to be sure that if she does want to pull away from me or try to get out of this, or something scares her, that I don't pull that bit through her mouth, okay? So a Spree's not much of a puller, but you may have a horse that's a little bit more excitable at the end of a lunge line. So this is a good option for you to make sure that you don't inadvertently pull that bit straight out of her mouth, okay? All right, so again, I'm just going to send her out onto the lunge circle by asking her to flex towards me, get that hind leg crossing under, so I can send her out. And the right hand went towards her eye, and the left hand towards her haunches, and she safely went sideways away from me out onto her circle, getting the circle big enough again, so we are not in kicking distance. And again, in this direction, I'm going to ask her to go a little bigger. So now what I want you to do, after you've gotten good at lunging your horse, your challenge is going to be to study the mechanics of the canter and the timing of the canter transition. So, when the horse canters, it's a 3-beat gait. The horse takes off into canter by pushing off their outside hind leg. So when they push off the outside hind leg, all the other 3 feet come off the ground. So the horse's front of their body kind of comes up a little bit. And the second step of the canter is the diagonal pairs of the outside front and the inside hind are on the ground together. And at that moment, the horse's body is pretty much horizontal. And the very last step is their inside front hits the ground all by itself. The other 3 feet are off the ground. And their body comes down a little bit in the front. You want to study that, see that, and recognize that, because if you're somebody who's just learning to canter, you want to kind of see that rocking horse sort of motion so that you can think about when you're riding that your body's going to follow that rocking horse motion. Your hip is going to kind of scoop along and follow that. All right, and the other thing I want you to look for when a Spree does canter is see if you can see that outside hind leg pushing off the ground and into canter. So we're going to go ahead and get a Spree listening again and have her trot and just work on a little bit of speed control while she's trotting. Try to keep her out of the neighbor's yard. Now, one thing I want you to notice that if you have a young horse and you want them to become more confident, we talked about getting them to be a little bit more confident and going faster at the trot. Not only are their hind legs working hard and ready for the canter, but they also feel pretty good about going faster with their tack on. This is also effective for a beginner rider who's learning to canter. If you practice going a little faster at the trot and you get used to going a little faster with your horse, you'll start feeling a little bit more confident about the prospect of cantering, which is generally tends to be a little bit faster than trotting. But if you get a good fast trot going and you get used to that, you should feel a little bit more confident about your ability to go ahead and try a canter. And you'll see that in our next riding lesson that we're going to do. Okay, so we're going to ask the spree again for trot. Good, ready. And you're going to notice that I'm going to ask her for a bigger trot here. Whoop, she jumped ahead. Usually I don't like to ask for the canter until I get along the fence line again to keep the outside shoulder straight. The spree has some practice at this, and she does pretty well. Bigger trot and canter. Canter. Good. Again, after trot before she breaks. Big trot. Come on, buddy. Bigger trot as we approach the fencing. And canter. And right. And trot. Yeah. So you see a spree at this point is pretty comfortable with cantering on the line and with her tack on. A lot of people think of young horses as being kind of wild when you first back them. But the reality is once you start putting equipment on and yourself on, they're a little bit unsure about their balance. So oftentimes, instead of what you see in the Western movies of bronking horses, you usually get a horse that kind of just wants to stand still and go slow so that they keep their balance. So I hope that that was helpful. Like I mentioned earlier, if you're having any kind of trouble teaching your horse to lunge, please let me know. There's so many different varieties of things that you can run into. And again, I have a variety of horses with different personalities, different levels of training here, as well as students. Same thing, different personalities, different levels of training. So I'm sure I could match up a horse and student that would fit to kind of demonstrate how you can work through some problems that you may be having. Okay, so I hope that lesson was helpful. Remember, your challenge for this lesson is to study the mechanics of that canter, the timing of the canter age, seeing that outside hind, pick up the canter, because we're going to need that for our next riding lesson. All right, so if you think this was a helpful video and you have a friend that it would benefit, please share it. Give me a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Thanks for watching.